The Timberline Ranch in Montana was more than just land. It was the last stand of Eli Sterling, a former forest ranger whose body was broken and whose spirit was hardened. But the biggest threat wasn't the bitter cold, or even the enormous, raging bull, Grizzly, that Eli kept locked away. It was the bank. And tonight, the greatest danger to this legacy ranch arrived not on a corporate jet, but in the shape of a terrified 7-year-old boy. It was a brutal October morning. Sam, the old ranch hand, found him huddled in the feed barn. Leo Sanchez, tiny, frightened, a runaway. Eli looked at the boy's worn clothes and immediately saw only a burden. "Get him off my land," Eli growled. The harshness in his voice was a scar from his own pain. But his 10-year-old daughter, Sarah, who had inherited her mother's heart, refused to let him go. "Dad, he's just a child. He's freezing," she pleaded. Reluctantly, Eli gave in. One night, he's gone by sunrise. That night, silence descended on the ranch, only to be shattered by an earth-shaking, terrifying sound. Grizzly's roar. Eli grabbed his rifle. Sam grabbed a lantern. They saw the impossible. Leo, the small, frail boy, stood right against the wooden fence. And on the other side, the black behemoth, Grizzly, was charging, scraping the frozen dirt with his huge hooves. Just feet from the fence, Leo whispered a single word: "Grizzly." The bull froze. The rage in his eye turned to confusion. Then, recognition. Slowly, impossibly, Grizzly lowered his massive head. He nudged his dark, wet muzzle toward the boy's outstretched hand. Leo gently stroked the bull's nose. Grizzly sighed, a soft, low sound no one had ever heard before. The monster had just bowed to a child. The gun dropped from Eli's hand. This wasn't natural. This was a miracle. The secret was out. Leo wasn't just a boy. He was the only one who could touch the bull. But why? Why did the most dangerous animal on the ranch recognize this scared little boy? The truth about their past is even more shocking. Stick around to find out. The mystery was solved by Mary, the cook. The boy was Leo Sanchez, son of their former cook, Emma. Years ago, when Grizzly was just a sick little calf, Emma brought Leo to the ranch. Leo, a toddler then, fed the little bull with a bottle. That was the bond. Animals never forget kindness. But recognition didn't pay bills. The bank was calling. That's when Preston Thorne arrived, the embodiment of corporate greed itself. Thorne, head of Thorne Agribusiness, offered $75,000 cash for Grizzly. A fortune. Enough to save the ranch, the legacy. For Eli, this was his only lifeline. He agonized all night. Sell the symbol of his challenge or lose his family's home. Eli called Thorne. He agreed to the deal. The next morning, Thorne's men came with a reinforced trailer. As soon as they tried to rope Grizzly, the bull erupted. He became the monster of legend again, shattering planks, tearing metal, injuring Thorne's arrogant foreman. The $75,000 piece of prime breeding stock was turning into a liability. Only Leo could stop the chaos. He rushed to the pen, whispering to the bull. Grizzly immediately calmed, leaning his massive head into the boy's hands. Thorne's face was venomous. He pointed a finger at Leo. "The deal's off," Thorne sneered. "Unless you sell me the boy too. He's the remote control. Without him, this thing is worthless." Eli stood there, the weight of his family's history crushing him. On one side, survival, money, the easy way out. On the other, his broken code, his integrity, and the young, vulnerable boy he had just started to protect. The rage of the old ranger finally found its true target: the injustice, the greed. Eli looked at the corporate bully and then at Leo, petting the gentle giant. He drew a deep breath and said the hardest words of his life. Leo is not merchandise. He is family. The deal is dead. Take your filthy money and get off my land. Eli had saved his soul, but he had lost the ranch. The final foreclosure notice was coming. Eli's choice cost him $75,000. But the consequences of that choice were far more terrifying than any debt. A bigger disaster was brewing, one that would test Grizzly's loyalty to the absolute limit. Don't go anywhere. 2 weeks later, the final blow arrived. The harshest blizzard in a decade slammed into Montana. The Timberline Ranch was completely isolated, trapped under a sheet of ice and snow. The wind screamed like a banshee through the canyons. Eli, ever the proud ranger, refused to ask for help. He tried to secure the main barn roof himself. He was alone, high up, fighting the ferocious wind. It happened in an instant. A sudden, vicious gust ripped a sheet of metal loose. Eli slipped on the ice. He didn't just fall, he tumbled, crashing down hard on his bad leg and his broken back. He landed awkwardly, a heavy beam pinning his right arm against a frozen water trough. The pain was blinding, white hot, stealing his breath. He tried to move, but the movement only sent a searing bolt of agony up his spine. He was trapped. The cold was setting in fast. Hypothermia was coming for him. Sarah and Mary were safe inside the house. No one could hear him over the blizzard's roar. He was going to die alone, frozen on his own ranch. Was this the price of integrity? Inside, Leo felt an unnatural disturbance, the kind he only felt when one of his animal friends was in profound distress. He knew. It was Eli. Leo pushed open the front door and was immediately hit by the white wall of the storm. He saw the faint silhouette of Eli near the barn. He ran. He found Eli. The ranger was barely conscious, his lips blue. "Go back, boy. It's too cold," Eli gasped, trying to push him away. "No, Mr. Sterling," Leo cried. "We need Grizzly." Eli laughed, a horrible, broken sound of disbelief. "That animal will just step on us." Leo rushed to Grizzly's heavy timber pen, his little hands fumbling with the frozen latch. The bull emerged, huge and terrifying in the swirling white. Leo didn't hesitate. He looked up at the giant animal, speaking not just with words but with his heart. "Grizzly, please, Mr. Sterling is hurt. The big wood is holding him. We need you to be strong. We need you to be a hero." The bull understood. He moved not with rage, but with deliberate, massive power. He saw the beam pinning Eli. Grizzly lowered his great head. He didn't use his horns. He used the smooth, hard part of his forehead. He leaned, shoving the heavy timber just enough, an inch, 2 inches, for Eli to drag his trapped arm free. Eli gasped, pulling himself away from the beam, collapsing in the snow. Grizzly then stood over the fallen ranger. He spread his legs wide, creating a massive, living shield against the wind. His body heat radiated down onto the frozen man. The fierce bull had become a sanctuary. When Sam and Mary finally reached them, they found Eli safe, warm, and alive. Saved not by his pride, not by a gun, but by the very beast he had feared and contained. Eli, who had lost faith in his own strength, was rescued by the strength of a gentle giant and the courage of a small boy. Eli looked up at the boy and the bull. He realized Leo didn't just save his life, he saved his legacy. But Eli still had one barrier left to break, the one around his own heart. Eli's life was saved, but his spirit was still trapped. The deep, old wounds of the past were still ruling him. How did Leo finally reach the hardened heart of the old ranger? This next part is the most emotional turning point of the entire story. The Timberline Ranch was slowly recovering. Leo's gift was now their business model. Farmers from all over Montana, North Dakota, and Wyoming came to the Timberline, bringing their traumatized animals, horses that wouldn't be saddled, dogs that wouldn't trust. Leo handled them all with quiet patience. Eli watched. He watched Leo talking softly, not ordering, but understanding. One afternoon, Leo was working with a horse named Shadow, who flinched violently whenever someone tried to saddle its back. The flinch was fear, born of past abuse. Eli, still favoring his own wounded leg, walked over, still clinging to his old ways. "The horse is being defiant, Leo," he barked. "You need to show it who's boss. Use the crop." "No, sir," Leo replied gently. "Shadow isn't defiant. He's hurting. He's afraid of being touched where he was hurt before." Eli snapped. He tried to demonstrate, grabbing the reins roughly. The movement sent a familiar jolt of searing pain through his own spine. He cried out, sinking to his knees, his face twisted in silent agony. The pain had broken his mask. Leo didn't panic. He didn't rush for a blanket or a doctor. He didn't treat Eli like a patient. He treated him like Shadow, the frightened horse. Leo knelt down beside the huge broken man. He placed one small hand gently on Eli's trembling back, right where the pain was worst. "It's okay, Mr. Sterling," Leo whispered, his voice full of the empathy he used for the animals. "It's okay to hurt. It's okay to be afraid. You don't have to be the boss right now. You just have to be." For the first time since his accident, since losing his wife, since bearing his grief under a shield of cruelty, Eli let the barrier down. He leaned into the touch. He didn't feel the sting of pity. He felt the warmth of unconditional grace. The man who ran a rescue ranch for animals was finally being rescued himself. He hugged the boy tightly, tears finally flowing for the life he lost and the beautiful, honest hope he had just found. That evening, Eli went to his desk. He pulled out the official adoption papers for Leo Sanchez. They had been sitting there for weeks, a terrifying commitment to vulnerability. He looked at the forms, then looked out the window at the barn, where a quiet bull named Grizzly stood guard. Eli picked up his pen and signed his name. Luke Elias Sterling. The boy finally had a home. The ranger finally had a son. They had beaten the cold. They had beaten the grief, but they hadn't beaten the debt. Preston Thorne had one final, poisonous trick up his sleeve. The final confrontation for the fate of the ranch is coming up. You won't believe how this small community fought back. The crisis wasn't over. Eli needed one last large sum to pay off the predatory loan and permanently secure the Timberline Ranch's future, safe from Thorne's hands. They decided on an event, the Timberline Heritage Auction. People came from all over. They came not for the cattle, but for the miracle. Just as the auction started, a black truck pulled up, cutting the celebratory mood. Preston Thorne. He had come to witness the ranch's final humiliation. He stood smirking, radiating cold arrogance. "Don't worry, Sterling," Thorne yelled across the crowd. "I'll be here when the bank forecloses. I'll make a theme park out of this little tragedy." Eli ignored him. He announced the final, most important item of the day, the right to spend 1 hour with Grizzly, not to own him, but to experience the magic of Leo's connection. The bidding started high. People wanted to support the boy, to support the legacy. But then Thorne raised his hand. $100,000, Thorne announced, his voice slicing through the crowd. "I will buy the right to spend an hour with that beast, and I'll use that hour to prove it's just a dumb animal, crushing its spirit once and for all." The crowd gasped. Thorne wasn't just bidding. He was trying to buy their spirit, their hope. The silence was deafening. Eli's face fell. He knew no one could match that price. The victory felt hollow. Then a quiet, older woman, a neighbor whose horse Leo had saved, stood up. She wasn't rich. She was a working rancher. "Mr. Sterling, you taught us something here. You taught us that some things are worth more than money. You chose your son over $75,000. I have nothing to give you but faith, but I know a man who does." The local banker, a man who had heard all of Leo's stories, cleared his throat. He spoke not as an employee of the bank, but as a member of the community. Mr. Sterling, the community has decided we have pooled our resources. We are making a counteroffer. It's not a bid, it's a gift. A gift for the Sterling family, for young Leo, and for the hope you've given us all. The debt is cleared. The Timberline Ranch is saved. Thorne drove off, defeated not by force, but by a community's heart. The Timberline Ranch was more than saved. It was redeemed. Eli Sterling, the hardened ranger, had found that the greatest strength is not the ability to fight, but the courage to love. And the boy with the secret? He didn't just save a legacy ranch. He saved a broken man, one touch at a time. The curse of Grizzly was gone. The legacy of the Sterlings was safe. Sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones who never carry a weapon. They carry a heart. The story of the Timberline Ranch has just begun. Click on the video popping up now to see Leo's work with the most violent Mustang in Wyoming, and tell us in the comments below, what is the most important legacy you've saved?